Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we begin the fourth Perek, HaMoicheres HaBayis, in Masechta Bava Basra. This Perek will discuss the halachas of mechira, a sale, you sell a house, other kinds of properties, and it's not very clear what's included in the sale and what's not. So the Mishnah, the Perek here, will give you the klalim regarding such kind of sales, what's included. Zok Deilige Mishnah, HaMoicheres HaBayis. A person sells a house, stam, and it's not specified what's included. Loi machar yitzia. He did not sell the yitzia, which the Gemara will explain what the word yitzia means. It's basically like an annex to the house. Even if this yitzia is directly open to the house, but it still has a separate use and it's not sold with the house. And also, and not a room that's within the house, meaning that it's you go into the house and then you go into this cheder, which is like in the back of the house. Now this cheder here is different than the Yitzia. It's a room, Rashbam, that it says, that's made for storage. People store valuables there and things like that, just like you have a chest that you store things. This is sort of a small room that people store things there, and that's a separate use of the house. It's not sold with the house. And also, Veloi Esagag, and also the rooftop, which could be used separately for storing things or for the space. If you sold the house, the rooftop is not sold. If around the roof there's a fence that's 10 tvachim tall, so we see that you put up that fence there in order to use it, so that's a separate use, not part of the house. Rabbi Yehuda says, if the entrance going from the house up the stairs into the rooftop, there's a tzuras pesach, meaning that there's a proper doorway and an entrance to go up into the rooftop, then even if the fence that's around the roof is not a proper fence that's 10 tvachim high, but you see that he has a proper entrance going into this rooftop, it's made separately to use, and it's not sold together with the house. What is this, the yitzia? The Mishnah said that that's not included with the sale of the house. So Hacha here in Bavel, Tirgemu, they translated this as afsa. Now this afsa is a small structure that has a low roof that's built behind the house, or the side of the house, like an annex to the house. Rav Yosef says, bitka chalila. It's a bitka chalila, which is also a small little structure that's built as an annex to the house, but this bitka chalila is built differently. It's not properly insulated for all the seasons of the year. It's built with walls that have a lot of windows around. It's basically like the people make today, these porches. I think the word for it in English is a vendera. Is that the word they use there? It's or it could also be called like a 3-season room. It can't be used in the winter. It's made with these windows around. That's what this yitzia is. So now the Gemara says, "Laman da'ama afsa." The opinion that says that this yitzia is this afsa, this little structure behind the house. Loi mizdabna. So again, afsa loi mizdabna, that this structure that's called an afsa is not sold together with the house. Kol shekain, definitely bitka chalila. Definitely this bitka chalila will not be sold together with the house because it's not even built properly insulated. Doesn't have proper walls. It just has these windows all around. So it's definitely different than the structure of the house, and it's not included in the sale of the house. On the other hand, the mandama bitka chalila, the opinion that says that the yitzia of the Mishnah is this bitka chalila, aval afsa mizdabna. But the afsa, even though it's a smaller structure with a lower roof, but it's built just like the house, and it can even have an opening to the house, that will be included in the sale of the house. Tana Rav Yosef said about this place, or this that's called a yitzia, shalosh shemis yeshle. There are 3 names for it: a yitzia, a tzela, and a to. And he brings the sources from the rooms that were built around the Beis Hamikdash. On all sides of the Beis Hamikdash, there were the chambers that are usually known as the Toim, that were built, and they were actually 3 stories high. There were a bunch of chambers there on each side, around and around the Beis Hamikdash. Now, in Psukim, when it speaks about these rooms, these chambers around the Beis Hamikdash, it uses these 3 expressions the Gemara says here. Tichsev, in one pasuk it says, in Malachim, by the first Beis Hamikdash, Hayitzia HaTachtaina, the lowest story of these 3 stories of the chambers around the Beis Hamikdash, Chamesh Pa'ama Rachba, the width of it was 5 amas. And then the one on top of it was even wider, then the one on higher was even wider, as the pasuk says. So you see, it uses the term yitzia for this chamber. Tzela, d'chsev, v'atzlois, in the pasuk in Yecheskel, where it's the nevuah regarding the third Beis Hamikdash, there it says v'hatzlois, and the chambers that are around the Beis Hamikdash, tzela al tzela, one chamber near the other, shalosh shloishim pa'amim, like this, 33 rooms that there are around the Beis Hamikdash. And ta, the word ta, which also means a chamber, the chsiv, the pasuk says, also there in Yecheskel, when it speaks about the third Beis Hamikdash, v'hata, the size of this chamber, kana echad, it's one kana, which is actually 6 amas, oirech, that's its length, and the kana echad rochav, and one kana its width. Ubein time, and then between one chamber and the other, chamesh amas, there was a wall of 5 amas. So here you see that it was called a ta. Or in another pasuk where it's called a ta, mehacha, from this pasuk where it speaks about the length of the entire heichal, and one of it goes through all the details, and then it says kaisel heichal, the wall behind the heichal, which is actually the wall behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim, is sheish, was 6 amas thick, va'ata, and then behind that there was a chamber which was also sheish, which was 6 amas wide, and then kaisel ata, the wall of that chamber was chamish, was 5. So here also it's called ata. So just like there, you have the chambers that have these 3 different names. Here we're talking about this little structure that's behind the house or attached to the house that has these names. Mazutra said about this, it's yitzia, that's not included in the sale of the house. That's only if it's at least the size of 4 by 4 amas. Then I say that it's choshev for itself and it's not part of the sale of the house. So Ravina says to Mazutra, according to your opinion that you say only if it's 4 by 4 amas, then it's not included. But if it's less than that, I say that it's just too small, it's not significant for itself, and it is part of the sale of the house. When it comes to a pit that's by a house, or maybe even in the house, the Mishnah later here in this Perek says that when you sell a house, so loyas abayr v'loyas adus, the pit or a dus, which is also a kind of pit which is made with rocks, is not included in the sale. Afal pi, and that's even if shekasav loy, the seller writes in the document of the sale, kaveruma, I'm selling the house and the depths and the height as well, but the pit is not included. So the question is, hachanami, are you going to say the same distinction there as well? If it's a size of 4 by 4 amas, then I say that it's significant enough to be separate and not included in the sale, and if it's smaller than that, then it will be included in the sale. So he answered him, Mazutra says, no, hachayashta, you can't compare the yitzia to this pit. Hasam, when it comes to the pit, the use of a house, and then the pit that's in the house is a separate kind of use. It's used to store water in it or something else, so it's not included even if it's small. But hacha, when it comes to this yitzia, both are a place of dwelling. The house and the yitzia as well is a sort of dwelling there. So you have it al dame. So there, I make this distinction that if it's 4 amas wide, then I say choshev, it's significant for itself and it's not included in the sale of the house. But v'iloi loy choshev, if it's not 4 by 4 amas, so then it's not significant enough and it's included in the sale of the house. Then it said in the Mishnah, v'lo yesacheder shalifnim imenu. Also a room, you go into the house, and then behind the house you have this room, is also not included in the sale of the house. As I mentioned, Rashbam says this room is a room that's made for storage for valuables. That's also not included. So the Gemara asks, Hashta Yitzia Leimus Daben, if he's saying that this Yitzia, which is a structure that's attached to the house, that could be used for a regular dwelling, is not going to be included. Cheder Miboye, this room that's used for storage, is needless to say that it will not be included in the house. Why does Mishnah have to say it separately? Answers the Gemara, the Mishnah that says it's cheder, that it's not included, it's only needed in the following case. The Hafagab, the Motzale, Mitzri Abroi. Even if, when he wrote in the document the borders of where, until where, and what is included in this house, so the borders that he gives him are from further out. Let's say this house is in the middle of between other properties, and there's Reuven that owns a house on one side, Shimon owns the house on another side, and he writes in the borders, I'm selling you this house. On the east is Reuven, on the west is Shimon. And now, if you're writing those kind of borders, that would mean that the cheder that's inside the borders should be included in the sale. And even then, when you wrote those kind of borders further out, still the cheder is not included. That's why the Mishnah is mentioning this. That's the chiddush. And this is based on what Rav Nachman said. Person that sells an apartment to his friend, which is in a big apartment building. So let's say, Bira Gedaila literally means like a big open place, like a big building which has a big open lobby, a common area for everybody. And then you have the doors that enter into all sides into apartments that are on all sides. And then there's the one common area in between that everyone walks through. So he sold him a house of this big building, of this big Bira Gedaila. Now, even when if in the document he wrote the borders of this house, he wrote outer borders of like further out, that Reuven lives on this side of the Bira and Shimon lives on the other side of the Bira. And when you look at the borders, it seems like he's including in the sale not only that one apartment, but he's also including the actual building itself with that common area. But nevertheless, it's not included. He just wrote him those bigger borders, and that's because sometimes you write the borders in such a way because it's easier to make clear exactly where the house is and where the borders are. So he writes, Reuven lives over there on that side, Shimon is on that side, and you're in between. So it's obvious that he didn't want to sell the building itself. He just wants to sell the apartment. He's just writing these borders for the clarity because that's what is obvious, that you can see where his apartment is. So the same thing we say over here regarding this cheder, that it's not included in the sale. Okay, but the Gemara now actually asks, what exactly is the story over here? So, it would be obvious that he doesn't mean to sell the whole building if he's selling the person the apartment. So, hey chidami, what's the case over here? If you're going to say the karele lebayis bias, an apartment or the house itself, that's called a house. Ulebira bira, and the building, the big building, that's called a building. So then pshita, it's obvious that even if in the borders that he wrote, it seems like that the whole building is included, but it's obvious that he didn't mean that he's just giving him a sign of where his apartment is, and it's not including the whole building. He sold him an apartment and he didn't sell him the building. Hello, but so it must be that what Rav Nachman was talking about is the lebira nami karele bias. Even this whole building, it could be referred to as a bias. If so, when he now made the borders and you look at the borders and you see that it did include the entire building, why wouldn't you say that it does include the entire building as well? Why shouldn't we take the borders literally? Now the Rashbam points out that you may think, well, just look at the price. Is he buying a house or is he buying a building? But when it comes to karkois, it doesn't work that way. You can't look at the price because the halach is the price and the value of a house or a building could go up and down. You can't look at the price regarding this. Answers the Gemara, lo yitzriche, we don't need this halacha of Nachman only in the following case. The Rube karele lebayis bayis lebira bira. Most people, an apartment is an apartment and a building is a building. It's separate. You understand that it doesn't mean the whole building. But the ikenami the lebira karele bayis. There are those that will refer to the building by the term a house, the apartment. So I would think to say that over here you should look at the borders, and in the borders it seems that it does include the building as well. Kamash Malon, that's the chiddush of Rav Nachman. Because over here, if he intended to sell him the building as well, he should have added in these words that I didn't leave for myself in this sale anything, and he didn't write that. Why does he have to write that in? So the Rashbam explains, taka for this reason itself over here. Because of what we're saying, that sometimes a person writes borders that he doesn't really intend to write that's everything that's in those borders is included in the sale. He's just writing those borders because it's just for the sake of clarity to show him exactly the location of what it is that's being sold. So he writes these borders, but it doesn't mean that everything is included in there. So over here, in order that you should say that taka, everything is included, you have to write, and I'm not leaving anything out. Whatever is in these borders is all yours. And he didn't write that, so shma mino sheyur shayir. Therefore, that proves that he actually did leave out the whole building, and he's only selling him this house, this apartment that's opening to this building. Similar halacha of Rav Nachman, Rav Baravu, a person sells one field within a big valley that there's many fields there. Even if he's standing here in this field, but he writes to him, and he's selling him this one field there, but he's writing him borders that are further out in this valley. He's writing him that someone owns there, and you're in the middle, and it's not just the borders of this field. But nevertheless, we say that he didn't sell him everything else as well. But mitzarim hirchavla, he's giving him these borders. That's just to give him the clarity where exactly his field that he's selling is, but not that he's selling everything that's included in it. So the Gemara asks here and goes through the same discussion as we had before regarding the house and the building. Hey Chidami, what's the case here? People refer to one field as a field and the whole valley as a whole valley, which includes all the fields in it. So then Pshita, it's obvious when he wrote him these borders, he told him, I'm selling you a field, that he doesn't mean to sell everything in the valley here. Sada Zavanle, he's selling him a field, and Bika Loy Zavanle, he's not selling him everything in the valley. Hello, so you're going to say the case here is the Lebika Nami Karele Sada, to the entire valley, everything in it is called as a Sada, a field. If so, if you look at the borders, Kul Zavanle, let's take it literally and say that he sold him all the fields in the valley. Answers the Gemara, as we said before, Leitzriche de Ikke de Lasada Karele Sada or Lebika Bika. Or actually, some take out the gears over here, the word the Ikke, but the Ruba, like we had before by the house. The Ruba, most people, a field is a field, and a bika, a valley is a valley. So if you said field, it doesn't mean the whole valley. But there are those that to the entire valley, they refer to it as a field. So in our case, I would think that he is selling him the entire valley like you see it in the literal borders that he wrote. Kamash Malon, therefore, Rav Nachman is telling you, because if you really meant to include everything, then he has to add in and write, I'm not leaving from these borders that I wrote her anything for myself. He didn't write that. So therefore it's clear that we go by what most people refer to it as a sadeh, and therefore he left out, he's not selling him everything in the valley. Okay, so now we have here two halachas that Rav Nachman said, one regarding a house, an apartment basically, in a building, and the other regarding a field in a big valley where there's more than one field. Why did Rav Nachman have to say the same halacha regarding the borders, that you marchiv the borders and you don't mean to sell everything that's in it? It was necessary for Rav Nachman to say the halacha in both of these cases. Because if he would only say this halacha regarding a house, I would say the difference between an apartment and the building, the lobby in this big building here, is obvious. Here it's a dwelling, and here it's a common area for everyone to use. So it's understood that why we say that when he's selling the house, the apartment, it doesn't include the building. But over here, the field that's in this valley, all the fields in the valley are the same. They're all used for fields. Maybe here, if he's saying that he's selling a field, and there are those that refer to the entire valley as a field, maybe Hitaka did sell him everything. That's why you have to say here, the halacha, that he only sold him this field. On the other hand, if regarding the valley, I would say that he only sold him this field, I would say the reason is because the fact that he gave him broader borders is because he didn't have any other way how to make it clear to him what it is that he's selling. A lot of times in a valley, when you have a lot of fields, there is like nothing specific that you could show what separates one field from another. So therefore he's saying on the east of where Reuven is on that side, and in the west of where Shimon is on that side. So he's giving him broader borders because there is no other borders within the valley to show him. That's why we can say that not everything is included. But over here, if you're buying a house, one apartment in this big building, but over here, there's walls between one house and one apartment and another. He could have given a border between his apartment that he's selling and the next over apartment, and he did not give this border, and instead he gave a broader border that seems to include the whole building. Maybe this is a sign that he actually did sell him everything, including the building. So therefore Rav Nachman had to say there as well that we can still say that it was just easier and simpler for him to give broader borders that makes it clear on which side and which direction it is, and therefore it doesn't mean that he sold him the whole entire building. So the Gemara, according to one Gersa, according to who there's a God, this that Rav Mari, which was the son of the daughter of Shmuel, said, in the name of Abaye, when you're selling a field to your friend, you have to specify and write in the document, I'm selling you, whatever's in the borders that I'm selling you is all sold, and I'm not leaving anything for myself. You must write that in. Why is that? So Gemara says, according to who is this? It's exactly like based on what Rav Nachman Amar Abba said before, that if you're not going to write that in, then we could say that the borders that are given here was just for clarity's sake to make it clear which direction and where exactly it's located. But not necessarily does it mean that everything is included. So therefore, if you want everything to be included, you have to write in all included. There's a person that said to his friend, "Out of the bechim is avnin alach." the property of Bechia that I have from Bechia, that I own now, I'm selling to you. But now he said a singular term, one ara. Havayale tarti arase. He had two fields that have a mescar in the Bechia that had this name of the property from Chia. So now which one, are they both sold? Is one of them sold? Amar Ravashi says, Choda amale, tarti lo yamale. He said one field of Bechia I'm selling, only one and not two. So that means only one. And so that means he's going to get one, he's going to get the one that's inferior quality, because that's the only one that he can take out. Again, now, v'yamale arase stome. If he says, he uses a plural term, that I'm selling you fields, so he uses a plural term, then we say mi'at arase shtayim. The minimum of the plural term would be two, so he gets both. Now, v'yamale kol arase, if he adds and says not only a plural term, but he says all fields I'm selling, then kol arase v'yislei, then all properties, all fields are going to be sold, lebar mibustini, besides gardens, upardesi, and vineyards that are not included in the term of arase. Now, v'yamale ziyara, if he uses the term of ziyara, which refers to all kinds of fields, including vineyards and gardens, everything, and then afil bebustini pardesi, even the gardens and the vineyards will be included as well. Lebar mibati v'avdi, but not houses or his slaves, then they're not included. Slaves are in many ways considered to be like karka, but it's not included in this expression of ziyara. V'yamale, if he writes to someone that he's selling him nichsi, his possessions, so the possessions includes all properties and also filabati v'avdi, even also all houses and slaves will be included in that as well. The Rashbam adds to the Gemara, and if you wrote kol nichsi, then it actually includes everything mamish and even metaltlin as well.